Ever wonder what it's like to drive the Alcan Highway in November? I loaded up a 2004 Honda Accord with 163,000 miles on it, front wheel drive and winter tires. I was fortunate and privileged enough to work for the fine journalists at the Alaska Dispatch News for a little more than 2 years. As you can see, there's only one road in and out of Alaska. The paper went bankrupt and the new owners laid off about a third of the staff, so I was on my way to Tok. Tok is a small junction with the Alcan Highway where the adventure really begins. Nice accommodations, cafe, clean motel room, and scene of Game 7 of the World Series. Houston beat the Dodgers 5-1. The next morning I set out early for Whitehorse, capital of the Yukon Territory, crossed over the border and into Canada. Nearly all of those settlements you see are closed for the season. It's a good idea to drive to the top of your tank. When you see gas, stop. Whitehorse is a good-sized town, about 30,000, plenty of places to stay. I met a friend in Whitehorse who had flown there that day from Los Angeles, Jay Christensen. We had arranged a flight to Dawson City, home of the Klondike Gold Rush of 1896 to 1899. Gold was first discovered in August of 1896, and it took until the following year for news of the strike to reach Seattle and San Francisco. From a town of about 500, the population swelled to 30,000 by the summer of 1898. There are still many period structures in Dawson, the Kissin Sisters, and these are our accommodations. Our flight the next day was delayed, which left us plenty of time to explore. We hired the only cabbie in town to drive us around. By 1899, the boom was over. Gold was found that summer in Nome, Alaska, and a new rush was on. We stayed another night in Whitehorse. The town rolls up pretty early on a slow night in November. The road conditions were about what you'd expect. A lot of ice and snow. We wended our way toward British Columbia. We came across a notable site right before we crossed into BC. Watson Lake, Yukon Territory. The Signpost Forest. There are 77,000 signs here. When the soldiers came up to build the road, they put up signs from where they were from, and the place has just taken on a life of its own. There are signs from all over the world. The Alaska Highway was commissioned in 1942 and was largely built by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It took 11,000 troops and 16,000 civilian workers just 8 months and 12 days to complete the 1,532-mile road. Many of them left signposts here. As you'll see here in a moment, out of all these thousands of signs, Jay came across his hometown, Fort Dodge, Iowa. Pretty incredible. I'll just give you a quick peek inside here. It just goes on forever, layer after layer. All of the highway is now paved and open year-round. Road conditions are like most secondary roads in the lower 48. It's the length of the highway, along with the remoteness and extremes of the northern climate, that make the journey unpredictable. We had to get back on the road in hopes of making Moonshell Lake that night. We were looking at a 9 or 10-hour drive that day. We slept fast that night and left early the next day. There's gas. Remember, always fill up. Beautifully constructed place, Northern Rockies Lodge. Comfortable, reasonably priced rooms, at least off-season. Food and drink were expensive. The next morning we saw our first bison. Jay was able to capture these images. There's not much at Fort Nelson except a hard turn to the south. Our destination today was Prince George, about 1,300 kilometers south. Morning gave us a good idea of what 2 days of hard driving on Alcan will do to your vehicle. We had 2 pits in the windshield and you couldn't even see the license plate. We left that day feeling confident about our final push to Vancouver. We stopped for coffee in Quesnel, and Jay was able to get some landscape shots. We had no idea that this would be our most treacherous day. First, the deer, hundreds of them darting all over the place. Then it got dark and the low beams were too dim for the road. The transmission shuddered and the check engine light flickered on and then off. Hairpin turns, switchbacks, and steep cliffs heading into Whistler. But we made it to Vancouver. From there it was on to Seattle and Portland, where Jay boarded a flight home. I continued on to Ashland, then Sacramento, and home. I made it! I made it! I made it all the way home from Alaska. 11 days, 3,405.8 miles.